Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Sounds of Stadia Podcast. This week I'm joined by one of my usual co-hosts, Richie. Welcome, Richie.
Hello.
And we've got another special episode for everyone listening this week. Tom isn't with us, unfortunately. We had to get rid of him for undisclosed reasons. So that's a joke, yeah. He's still alive and well. He's just unable to join us this week. So in his stead, got one of our other good friends jumping on the podcast to give us a bit more insight into what he described himself as a lapsed gamer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Luke to the stage.
Hello all. Hi.
Applause for Luke.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome Luke. So a bit of history about yourself, Luke. Found out this week you've done a bit of journalism in the past, and you've actually wrote gaming articles for none other than the Guardian newspaper.
Yes. So in a previous life, I used to do a fair bit of writing, and some of that touched on video game journalism. Yeah. So I did what I know that Chris, you saw a piece I did for the Guardian about YouTubers when it was just starting to really blow up back in the day.
Yeah,
So,
it was really interesting to actually read through kind of detracted from the time period it was in. And I think I messaged you back after I'd read through it and saying how interesting at the end you say this YouTube thing's almost got loads of potential in allowing to grow a small community and an audience using like kind of video content and such. And it kind of mirrors, ironically, what we're talking about with Stadia being such a small niche community at the moment that has the potential to grow. And yeah, that article was from back in 2004, I
Yep.
believe.
yeah.
So
yeah.
it's crazy how times have changed. I mean, the Guardian, does anyone even buy the Guardian newspaper anymore? It's all
No,
online.
it's-
Pretty much,
Did
isn't
anyone
it?
buy print media anymore, apart from old people?
Exactly. Everything's in the cloud and streaming. So yes. So welcome, Luke. Welcome. And the reason we have got you on for a reason. We haven't just plucked you out of our friend list and thought who wants to come on an audio podcast. But obviously you are one of our devout listeners as well. So we do want to thank you for that as well. And thank you for giving your time to actually join us on this week's show. But the reason we've got you on specifically is that we donated one of our buddy passes to you very generously for you to test out, so we could get your feedback and experience from somebody outside of the kind of gaming centric circle, which we'll get to later on in the show. But yeah, we thought it would be really interesting to see, as you've mentioned, a kind of a lapsed gamer. You've not had any of the current gen consoles, as we call them. So for you to jump in at this, it's quite a leap forward from what you remember and what you were familiar with.
Yeah, for sure. So as you say, I'm very much what you would think of as a sort of a lapsed or reformed gamer, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh,
No
but,
cartridges anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Growing up, it would be the same as yourselves, and for the listeners out there, gaming was very much a massively significant part of my life. I mean, one of the earliest memories I have is when I was 3 years old, discovering this thing called Legend of Zelda on the NES. And after that, I just fell in love. It was a huge part of my life for many years. And I started to, once I got to university and things different, I had different things going on in my life, and I just sort of lost the love of it, to be honest. That's not to say that I'm still not passionate about gaming. I am, but it's very much retro gaming. So I couldn't tell you the first thing, honestly, about PS4, Xbox One, anything new. I got a Switch late November
You
2019.
did.
And that blew my mind. And that's a Switch. I mean,
Are you still playing Legend of Zelda then?
I am. Even now, it's jaw dropping to me how good it is compared to, say, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Obviously, I'm just talking about graphics. I'm not picking and choosing gameplay. But yeah, so Stadia for me was very much, when I started hearing about it, it seemed like my way in again, rather than playing old NES games, SNES, PlayStation, whatever. It seemed very much, okay, this seems accessible. Whereas for me now, I'm in that position where I don't want to go back a year, 2 years, go through all these, I'm sure, incredible gaming catalogue on, say, the PS4, the Xbox One, like The Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption, things like that, which I'm sure are amazing. I just want to get going again. I have maybe an hour, 2 hours a week that I can game, so anything that's pick up and play is perfect for me.
Yeah, I think you fit into the category a lot of people do when the harsh reality of being an adult hits. And
Exactly, yeah.
as you said, responsibilities kind of take over and priorities, and rightly so. Careers and friends and family and relationships will always take place. I think everyone out there can attest to one point in their life when they've had to put gaming to a side, and rightly so. As much as we are passionate and we love it, there are more important things to life than locking yourself in a room.
For me, it's usually I'm just tired. Like, I don't want to play because that takes effort. I just want to zone out and watch something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. It was something I was thinking about just before we started talking today. Actually, is that there's just so much media now, and it was sort of the thing that I had to take a step back and think, okay, what can I sort of drop out of all these spinning plates, just in terms of personal time, not even work or anything like that. And unfortunately, gaming was the easiest one for me to lose. But part of that is just the nature of gaming. So, massive 1 hour updates and things like that. I don't have time for that. I want something that is quick and easy.
Yeah, there's been many a times I've been frustrated by getting in, wanting to quickly jump onto a game because I've found I've got maybe an hour free in between. Maybe he's going out for lunch or while my missus is getting ready. And like you said, you jump in, you want to load up this game for a quick half an hour, and there's an update or a patch that needs to install. And with a lot of games now being reliant on connectivity to the internet, you can't play the game until the update's done. You're pretty much like gridlocked out until it's finished, and then like you said, time slips away from you, and you have to move on with it. So the huge benefit of Stadia is realistically is that it's instant. It's there. There's no relying on these patches and updates. But I think what you're saying is all these spinning plates. You're completely right. The amount of media that we're all hit with day in day out now. I find myself on my mobile phone for so long, scrolling and jumping from news apps to sports apps to Facebook to Twitter, and I'm being hit with so much information. It's very difficult sometimes, I think, to just take a step back and realize that you've been drawn in for so long by these devices.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's partly why retro gaming speaks to me so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously you've got the power of nostalgia, and everyone loves that.
Comfort there.
Everything that's going on now, but it's comforting. It's easy. I know what I'm getting. I'm still discovering new stuff.
Retro gaming. The bulk of it.
Yeah, not quite. Silver Surfer, maybe not. But yeah, and I'm always going to settle for that. For me personally, again, I know that I'm not in the majority with that, but I'm sure there's a lot of people even listening to this now going, actually, yeah, I understand, or they'll have friends or family who are in the same boat as what I am.
Yeah, and we can't underestimate the power of nostalgia. We live in a world now where, because everything's being kept around, whether it's retro consoles or movies or music, but we're in a world where nothing's really lost because it's all online. So it's crazy to think you can go back to something that you purchased maybe 30 years ago or longer, hook it up to a television, and you're away, and it plays the same way it did 3 decades ago, which is crazy to think that.
It's amazing. That's something that we can't take for granted, especially, and don't get me wrong, things like Stadia, Netflix, streaming, cloud, everything is incredible and is the way forward. But it is something, it's a valid conversation and a valid point that we have to have, which is in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, you've got games that are coming out now. What happens to them? I can turn my NES on today. I've got Super Mario exactly the same as you say.
Yeah, that save file from 1992 is still sat there.
Exactly.
Ready to go.
Yeah, so it's such an interesting area, I think.
Yeah, what was quite interesting, I can't remember the name, but I was listening to one of the IGN podcasts through the week, and there's actually a British company started off as a Kickstarter project to save retro games. I'll have to find the link and I'll put it in the description for the podcast, but the gentleman started off as kind of a passion project in trying to archive classic games, and it actually turned into a business, and they've launched in the UK in kind of beta mode. I believe they were about to launch in the US later this year, and they basically have thousands of retro games from arcade cabinets that they've ported across to it, all these classic little mini games that maybe don't have the commercial or marketing awareness that the bigger developers had behind them, and they're basically slowly over time going to just collate as much as they can do. And I think the way of archiving classic games is it's a piece of gaming heritage that I hate to think just falls out of time and space and no one ever sees it again.
If I recall correctly, I think one of the Final Fantasy games where it's basically just gone because Square no longer have the source code for that game. It was just lost at some point in time. They just never thought that people want this again. And well, storage is expensive, so I think someone made the decision to get rid of it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There's things like that out there, and that's Square. They're a big company, and that's a big franchise.
I'm pretty sure 2 of the Super Mario ports, I can't remember if it was to Wii or another maybe platform, maybe it was their online account. They lost the original source code, so they used a ROM or an emulator, file from somebody online to recreate the game and republish it on that platform. So that's, like you said, Richie, that's the biggest companies. They just get lost. I mean, we hear it with movies all the time where they find production film reels in like somebody's loft after they passed away, who happened to be like a audio producer on a massive blockbuster film, and they just happened to take home the can reels at the end of the production because no one wanted them, and it's
going to get chucked in the bin. So someone thought, I'll take that home as a memento.
Yeah, and there's like crazy edit cuts of pieces of amazing movies that no one ever found about that get discovered decades later.
Yeah.
But I
know
suppose...
that there is. I know that the listeners will probably be able to correct me on this, but I know that there's a Pokemon minigame that it was like a teeny tiny Game Boy sort of thing, or even like a Tamagotchi.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember that.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. Like if we don't preserve it, it's gone. It's such an important part of our culture and our gaming history, media industry. But if someone doesn't do it, it's gone.
Yeah, and I think with the way we are leaning into cloud gaming, like you said, Luke, it is the future, and it's the way everything's going. We saw it dominate the music industry, take over. We've seen it now happen with television. Gaming is probably the last big pillar to topple in terms of entertainment. And the great thing with everything being in the cloud now is it's always there. It's spread out across thousands of servers globally. It's never in one place to be destroyed or lost by, say, a fire or theft or anything like that. So I think in terms of game preservation, the great thing with cloud services such as Stadia is that every game that goes up to their library, it's indefinitely saved in the cloud. It's broken up into millions of little bits and bytes and spread out across the globe.
There is downside to that. I mean, I think the Nintendo Wii store is now gone. You can't access it at all anymore. And there's games that are published just on the store as digital downloads. So unless you've got that saved on your Wii, you don't have access to that anymore.
That
true. Is the downside of this sort of thing.
So the way that kind of stands Stadia out separately is Stadia is the platform for Google. So whereas PlayStation and Nintendo, as you mentioned there, they eventually move on to another generation, and slowly but surely their previous model gets left behind, and they end up shutting servers down and everything. The benefit of Stadia is this is their model. There isn't going to be a Stadia 2, I don't think. It's just going to be constantly evolving into this bigger catalogue. So you'd like to think in 10, 15 years' time, when this podcast has over 1 million listeners, and it's smashing out the numbers across YouTube and everything, and Luke owns the Guardian newspaper. In a crazy scenario like that, we can look back and every Stadia game, even those ones that came out on launch last year in 2019, will those games still be accessible? I'd like to think so. That'd be fantastic, because then you can just jump into your back catalogue, your library. Luke will be able to go back and play whatever the current equivalent of Zelda is on his Stadia device, and he won't have to have bought a new variant of it. It'll always be playing on the last update. His save data will be there because it is just spread out globally on these Google servers.
You know what? There's some people who don't just think like games getting ported to a new console. But to be honest, as when I got my 3DS, one of the reasons that sold me on it was Ocarina of Time 3D. I want to play that game again.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Unfortunately, my N64 no longer works because someone stole it and it was left out in the rain overnight.
So does it? So where then? So it no longer works because it was stolen?
Someone stole it, but then they abandoned it. But it was raining, and now it no longer switches on.
Oh,
and I just haven't.
Just to add insult to injury, they just left it outside.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then not long after, Ocarina of Time 3D was launched, so I bought a 3DS so I could play.
That's crazy. To think you would steal something so portable and then abandon it.
Yeah.
What happened in that scenario for them to ditch it?
I woke up while they're in the house.
All right. Okay. So you. All right. Okay. So you interrupted their thieving shenanigans. Right, bastards. So I suppose that's our kind of well-being section for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me, Luke and Richie, on our human resources segment where we break down the trials and tribulations of life, being an adult, juggling gaming, and everything there is to know about Stadia. But I suppose we should move on, and we'll jump into the news. Hopefully, Richie, you're good to take over Tom's role for this. Luke, you'll be familiar with this, being an avid listener as well.
You know what?
Of course,
I was going to have to do this, so here we go.
Go on, Richie.
Super Sexy Special Stadia Story segment, a.k.a. The News. That was me, I went early.
I thought I'd timed up with you, and then Luke was on a time delay.
I completely forgot I'd have to do
nervous.
that. First time nerves, yeah.
Yeah, I was too nervous.
Were you sat there thinking, do I say it? Do I let them just say it? Am I allowed
to
say
it? I was thinking I'm going to go for it. But yeah.
Should we try again?
Right, 3, 2, 1.
The news.
No,
let's just go.
Right, yeah, we'll just crack on with what is, after all, the news. So it's been an interesting week for the news for Stadia. We didn't get much in terms of gaming news, which Luke, you mentioned beforehand. We started recording. It's probably better for your benefit, purely because you're not too clued in with all the latest games that are upcoming.
Oh yes.
So we don't want to throw any questions to you around Cyberpunk and the developers, who they are and stuff. So what's been really good is the news this week's been very conference announcement heavy, very generic news in terms of some deals and upcoming information that's dropped relating to Stadia. So we'll start off with probably what is the biggest piece of news, which we kind of think did expect, but the Game Developers Conference, otherwise known as GDC, kicks off in March, I believe it is. And Stadia, or Google, have announced that they are going to be present again with a long list of stage time, taken through a few things aimed towards the developers and creators of games, as they did last year. But we all know they announced Stadia last year, so we'll give you a rundown of a few of the points. So Richie, Luke, feel free to chime in once we go through them. But the breakdown for the day is they started off saying they're going to do a masterclass of cloud gaming, essentially, and it's going to be Tales from a Stadia launch. So by the looks of it, they're going to basically break down their platform. They're going to get a few people on stage and talk about probably the trials and tribulations of launching a brand new ecosystem into the wild in the 21st century, where cloud technology is very much live and present. Any thoughts, Richie, Luke, what that possibly might look like? What are they going to actually discuss?
I'm guessing they're going to focus on the positives, because GDC was actually where they announced Stadia last year. They're going to focus largely on the positives of cloud gaming. Probably get some success stories, probably some magic, probably some stuff from the community, some of the streamers that they've got into the Stadia platform, some of the big guys. I kind of hope they touch on the negative side and address some of the issues that some people have experienced, because while Stadia does work well for me and you, Chris and Tom, and we can get into, Luke, what your experience is in a bit with Stadia directly, but there is people out there who have had problems, and they're things that I don't think Google should just sweep under the rug.
I think if they are going to address them, it's definitely, hopefully they're going to address it, but say what they've got in terms of a fix.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
if we've had these scenarios crop up, we didn't expect them, where they kind of caught us off guard, but this is what we've done to remedy that issue, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, I think the Stadia launch, I think they're definitely going to come out, and hopefully we're going to see some numbers as well. I'd be really interested to see how it has performed, not necessarily sales wise, but just hours streamed. That's always a good statistic streaming shows like to come out with. I think Netflix recently did it with The Witcher, saying it was the most streamed show, brand new IP or something ever, and they always disclose how many hours have been watched over the globe, and it always ends up being crazy high numbers, like 10 million hours you've watched of this show and such. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see that, especially across different countries as well, because we take it for granted that Stadia is just kind of in our own living rooms, but the reality is there's people all over the globe now using the exact same service. So it'll be interesting to see what they come out with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, they're saying they're going to be learning about the capabilities of Stadia to build great gameplay experiences. So probably getting some first-hand experience from people in the community who are using Stadia. But again, as I said, I don't think they should ignore the negative sides of this, because there is some people who have had a bad time with it, and I think you run the risk if you just go only positive on this. The people who have had problems just feel ignored.
Yeah, it starts to sound a bit.
I agree with Richie there. Definitely, even I know from my limited experience, and since I've had the Buddy Pass looking, and we can go into my personal experiences, but I know that it's not all been plain sailing for a lot of the community, and it feels right now, at least from the outside looking in, that Stadia is still very much. It feels like it's more community driven than other platforms might be expected and things like that. So I think if Google were to be proactive and say, look, guys, we know some people have had issues. This is what we're going to do. I would imagine it would bring a lot more people, not back on side, because I don't necessarily think they're overly negative right now, but it would definitely help a lot, I think, in the short and the long term if Google did that. So it will be interesting to see what they come out with.
Yeah, certainly.
The perception of the negativity is bigger than the actual negativity. There's a lot of people just hearing a couple of people moan about latency issues and go, oh, well, Stadia's full of latency issues. This is what I heard, and just chiming in. And the negativity can quite snowball as well. And so, again, I think it's just address it and we've heard your feedback. This is what we're doing to work, and it will constantly work behind the scenes to get things working better even on slower or less stable internet connections, to find ways to develop that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And you always get the vocal minority. We need to remember that the people who shout the hardest are always the negative ones, and that's in everything, not just the gaming community.
Yeah. And not so much in the UK as well. There's a lot of people out there concerned about data caps.
Yeah, that is true. So again, that's probably not so much Google's fault at the end of the day. No, that's down to. But as we see with everything, it tends to grow. So I think where those data caps are, and I know in the States they've got a lot of issues around. What's it called? Where they're having loads of issues. I think San Francisco, California is quite a big one, where they're trying to throttle speeds and the limit your allowance.
This is where we need Tom, actually, because I'm sure there's some development Google can do in the background there to try and decrease the amount of data used while maintaining quality.
Yeah, there'll be some compression algorithms and all that kind of content. But I don't want it to get to a point where we have to play our games and unzip the file first.
No.
that'd be a terrible step.
Google needs to take care of that on the back end, but if they can drop down, especially like for the 4K, drop down the amount of data usage, that's, if they can go, what is actually, how much does it typically use at the moment? Do you know off the top of your head for 4K?
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, with time, everything crumbles. And again, if cloud gaming is the future, it's the same with mobile companies. We've seen internet usage increase. It's usually about 3 times year on year. Your average user, the data cap goes up. So a lot of mobile networks are getting behind that now. So it's only a short time, but hopefully before the landline providers kind of get behind it too. So. That kind of goes into the next point then. So Google are also going to spend some stage time at GDC talking about the journey of bringing their Unity game to Stadia. So no doubt they're going to get the developers on stage speaking to their fellow peers about using the Unity engine to bring a game to Stadia. And they're probably going to have some short videos of developers working away in their office, and they'll cut to one-on-one questions, no doubt, about how they've had to tweak their games and customize them for the kind of server load that Stadia is. I can't imagine they go too in depth into revealing anything about games, but it would be fantastic if they use that as a chance to say, here's a game you don't know about. Here's a peek behind the curtain as to how we've actually been working to get it to go live on Stadia.
Yeah. One thing we have to remember about GDC is it's not a consumer show.
Yeah, it's
a developer show. It's a conference for developers, so the content is aimed at them. So this talk about bringing Unity games to Stadia is more about for developers in that conference suite looking at Stadia as a platform and wanting to hear what their colleagues' experiences are.
Yeah, completely agree.
There's probably some cool stuff there for consumers because Google are not stupid enough to know that no one's watching.
Yeah. Again, especially in the digital world we live in, where this GDC conference is no doubt going to be broadcast and stripped of every little detail they can find, and it'll be up on news articles and websites as well. And no doubt we're going to talk about every little niche thing that they pull out of that conference as well.
Yeah, and imagine Dan from Stadia Source is going to have a busy week.
Oh yes, 100%. That's actually where Tom is now. We've sent him on a plane over to America to get his seat booked at the GDC conference, with him being our techie guy. He doesn't know it yet.
He's sat there in the conference room asleep, waiting until March.
Yeah, he will wake up. He will wake up in March. Sleeper agent. Another point. Yeah, he will be. Another point. Actually, saying that while we're mentioning Tom and Joe, all jokes aside, he's going to be live during the week for a live stream. We suspect Borderlands 3 potentially, so keep an eye on our social feeds to keep in the loop with that when it goes live. Speaking of Borderlands 3, then, and multiplayer games, that brings us on to the next point Google are going to be talking about at GDC, which is their multiplayer game service integrated with cloud. So obviously, Google, the whole concept with this was it's streaming, it's all cloud-based. My guess is they're going to use this as an opportunity to reveal some statistics around all the data that's being shared and how that can benefit multiplayer gaming going forward. We've seen it a lot with Grid. They've done a couple of 40-plus player races, which isn't capable on the traditional servers. Anything you thoughts, Richie, regarding this one?
There's going to be probably a lot of talk, I imagine, about Destiny, with Destiny being the first game as the pro, so everyone has pretty much everyone on the platform who was an early adopter has Destiny. I imagine, Borderlands is another big one with big community support in there. Wildlands, probably, with the screen share stuff. Screen Connect, was it called? I keep forgetting the name of that feature.
Yeah, I think they're going to go big on, as you said, that their flagpole games like Destiny and stuff that rely on multiplayer connectivity. And I think they're just going to reveal to the developers like either how easy it is or how they can drill down to the most minute information and see how they can get multiplayer games running to their best potential. Pardon me. We theorized it a good couple of episodes back now, the potential it has for the likes of Battle Royale games, where you can have upwards of hundreds, thousands of people in any game world at any point. And the potential is limitless.
Yeah, especially something like Apex, which is a lot more team based, and you're in like squads of three. Like the Screen Connect stuff would be brilliant for that.
Yeah, fantastic.
It'd be nice for them to actually give a shout out to the guys in the community who are organising these 40-player grid races, just to give them a shout out. This is a nice platform to do it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that brings it closer to one of their other points. They are actually having a section based around Destiny. They're doing what they've described as a GDC post-mortem. So they're going to look at, they've got a senior developer from Bungie to come on, who's obviously one of the original partners with them, and going through testing, graphics tweaking, back-end infrastructure, latency. And yeah, Bungie are basically the guinea pig who trialed that out with it being a free game for every player at launch. So they'll have seen stress on their network. They'll have seen all the bugs basically crop up firsthand. So it'll be interesting to see what they come out with and how they've corrected any issues or fixed any problems that did show up.
There'd be a very good mic drop moment in there. If at the end of that particular talk, Bungie came out and went, "Oh, by the way, it's now crossplay."
Yeah,
and that we wanted to take the first few months just to see the data on Stadia alone before we launch it all into the wild.
Yeah, that would pique a lot of people's interest. I really think they are going to go big on this because it is a year from their initial launch. And I think they'd be daft not to use it as a platform to basically reset and reassess all the goals that they pointed out a year ago. We have covered this in other episodes as well, but machine learning. So no doubt you've all read the articles online and stuff about Google's machine learning can beat itself at chess, and it essentially is going to be Skynet in the future. Yeah. And I for one welcome our Google overlords in the year 2020.
Praise to Google.
That's why we're all here. Yeah.
It is. They're slowly drawing us in with all these little bits of useful technology. But machine learning is incredibly interesting for the future of these big open world games, which we've become so familiar with now, because it allows them to just be a lot smarter. So that classic joke you see of AI in the likes of Skyrim, where they're talking to you, but they're looking at a wall while they're talking to you, or
walking into the wall.
Yeah, or even the type who repeat the same line when you go back to them and just say the same dialogue over and over again. And I think machine learning has such a great potential for making the world feel fluent and having, again, maybe it's not the most detailed conversations, but imagine going back to a random character and the conversation isn't just repeat. It can pull together smart learning and actually have a conversation with you. And as long as it can get them algorithms sorted and realistic, it's crazy. There's no kind of limits to it.
Skyrim could be an interesting experiment there to just like, okay, we'll port the Stadia, but we're going to start replace some of the AI with machine learning just as a test on something that people already exist that people are familiar with.
Yeah.
Because they have tweaked Skyrim in the past when they brought out the HD version, the 4K version, and the VR versions.
I mean, let's be honest, Richie. Skyrim is coming to Stadia eventually.
Of course it is.
There's no way it's on every other device known to man. That Pokemon Tamagotchi thing you were talking about, Luke, that possibly will have Skyrim on at some point by the end of this decade.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my microwave can play Skyrim by now.
Someone listen to this will have one in the drawer and go, I can't play Skyrim on that yet. I will sort it out.
Yeah. Don't get re. We'll sort that out. So again, the potential's huge, and if they have got something to bring to the stage and just kind of showcase how interesting it'll be, I could see that being something really simple. Like they go talk to an NPC character, he says one thing, they go over to him, they go back to him, he says something, and then they'll reset the whole game, go back, and he's got an entirely different flow of conversation. And then they basically roll out that actually this isn't scripted, it's just all AI based on your interactions with him. You shoot him with an arrow, go back, he all of a sudden hates you. It'd be really interesting how they can play with that.
It can be little things like you ask a character directions to a specific place, then you come back in a day or two and goes, "Oh, did you find it all right?" That's little things that makes it feel like more real. Of a human interaction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it should be scary, especially if like you haven't. Imagine, just visualize this, Luke. You've not played your Zelda game in 20 plus years. You go back and that AI character goes, I haven't seen you in 20 years. Where the hell have you been? Because it knows you saved, it knows the date, it knows the last date on your save file. That'd be crazy. Like stuff like that. It's like you haven't aged a day.
It's it actually it reminds me a little bit of Animal Crossing. I don't know if you guys played it. Yeah, where it just totally guilt trips you if you hadn't played for a couple of weeks. Like, oh, who are you?
It's like natural Tamagotchi. It will die if you don't play with it.
Yeah.
That real life fear, which is just, it's crazy. So other points that they've mentioned, they're going to show up with porting Snowdrop to Vulkan, whatever the hell that means.
No, you just said words.
I presume it's the different types of engines that they use. I know I think it's Snowdrop EA's engine. Snowdrop sounds. Oh, Frostbite's EA's engine. Snowdrop. Who uses Snowdrop?
I don't know.
Someone. I know it's. I think it's definitely the name of an engine. So no doubt they've got developers who come up with Vulkan's obviously the Star Trek engine that they're working on to get us into hyperspace or whatever the hell it is.
Snowdrop's Ubisoft.
Is it?
Yeah, well, created by Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft Studio.
Oh yeah, sorry, so Massive, yeah. Oh, interesting. They don't really promote it at the start of their video games, Ubisoft. They just go straight into Ubisoft Montreal or such, and then the game starts. Whereas I feel like a lot of the other game developers, it always showcases the name of their engine at the beginning, like Crytek or whatever it might be. Oh well, interesting. So Ubisoft are obviously a great partner with Stadia. They've been a really good, close working relationship from day one. We've still got a bunch of games coming out announced for Stadia. I think they probably are, aside from Bethesda, they're probably the best up-and-coming helper that's put them on the map a little bit.
I'd imagine there's going to be talk about you playing there if they're porting Snowdrop over.
Yeah.
This is the building the platform to get all of Uplay on Stadia.
Yeah, interesting. So other points they've got on there is they're going to supercharge your gaming discoverability. The entire internet becomes your storefront with Stadia. Come learn how to drive discoverability. So I guess this is going to be about promoting your own games within the realm of Google Ads and YouTube and such like that.
Yeah, well, they did say things like, as part of the initial release last year at GDC, that you'd be able to go on the YouTube video, see someone playing it, and just one click and you own it, you can just jump straight in. So it's probably going to be this sort of stuff, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we've done a lot of groundwork for the last couple of months, and here it is. This is how it's going to look. This is how it's going to be showcased. If you are a developer in this room, get on board with it. It's so easy. Yeah. And then I think a few of the final points, they're going to look at the future of gaming, which no doubt is, it says they've got a Google host panel featuring leaders from the games industry. My guess is they're going to be from the developers they're currently partnered with, discussing how they've utilized cloud technology to lead successful business in today's world, and how it looks like to be heading in the future. So this is probably going to be big promoting on cloud gaming, the platform as a whole, the future, everything's improving and getting better, and how Google should be front and center with that. Other final ones, there's only kind of real one. They've got an independent games summit, which is going to be from the creator of the game Keen. which I've not looked at yet. It's one that the artwork didn't really grab me. I know it's a little puzzle game, but I believe it started off as a passion project for the developer, and then when Google came with a bit of money and stuff, it kind of grew into a bigger project. But it's not one that I've really had a chance to look at on the net.
It's one I'm kind of hoping we get on as a part of our Pro subscription, because that's when I'll probably jump in.
Yeah, just a free little game.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all they've announced for GDC. Richie, do you suspect that they're going to announce anything relating to games, or do you think the chances of us getting a Google Connect prior to GDC?
I don't know. There's quite a lot of talks they're giving at GDC, and I'm not sure if this would be the place where the cost of so much stuff and there's so much like techie stuff basically that there might be a couple of game drops in there. I'm not sure about the Google Connect at the moment now, because they've only actually had one in the entire time since Google launched Stadia. It may be that they might not. I don't know. We'll have to see on that front.
I mean, by the time GDC rolls out, we must have details of Stadia Base at that point, because it's mid-March. So if we don't know anything about Base by then, they've clearly got nothing in their timeline for discussing it. And why would they do that to developers? There has to be a Stadia Connect at some point.
I like the Connects. I know we were hoping for one at the start of the year, but they give it just a decent sized community post with quite a few stuff in there. That's where they announced the 120 games, the 10 exclusives, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I think you get more traction if, considering they'll post on YouTube, to actually just do a YouTube premiere of the next Connect. They can really, because it's YouTube, they can literally put that front and center for everyone on YouTube. And I think you get loads of traction in there just to see people, just curiosity, what's this about.
Yeah.
So I hope they do one.
Yeah. I mean, Luke, just to get your take on it, if you were Google, you're about to announce your free rollout service, Stadia Base, to the masses. When would you feel is the best time for them to do it, from an outside perspective?
I mean, I guess if it was for me, looking from the outside in, and having worked in communications for a while, it should have been done months ago. You would imagine, especially someone as massive as Google. You would think they'd just be sort of, drip feeding in again and again and again, and it's. I mean, time's getting on now. You'd be hard pressed if you asked 100 people on the street what is Stadia to get. In my opinion, maybe 50%. 50 of them would know what it is, maybe. And you're talking about Google, the biggest company in the world. So it's interesting. I mean, you've got to think that they're going to really, really push on it.
There has to be a master plan somewhere in the pipeline, because you're right. I've spoken to some of my colleagues who work within the tech industry, and they kind of have a rough idea what it is, but they by no means understand it. So how, like you said, the general public... Yeah. Will they even know if you went and questioned them on the street? We might actually send Tom out with a microphone and see if we can get some live feedback from a city centre. And if you asked 100 people on the street, what is Google Stadia? What do you think Google Stadia is? I'll bet you'd get a really good laugh out of some of the responses.
Yeah.
I reckon if you asked 100 people, you probably get 10 who might know what it is, and maybe 15 who've heard of it.
Yeah,
I think 15's even pushing it.
Yeah, well, with the BT deal announcing, I'm guessing it's going to be appearing on billboards and stuff. So it's going to become part of the common consciousness soon.
For sure. It needs more of those BT buy-ins and things like that. What I'm surprised at, looking at it from a sort of a marketing commercial perspective, is that Google aren't sort of doing similar to in a way to what Amazon do with like their Kindles, or with Prime and things like that, where just getting it in people's homes. So if you have YouTube Premium, okay, here's 3 months of Stadia. You have this and you get that. That's a real surprise to me.
I can see it being in something in the pipeline, but they need to go big and go hard on it. Otherwise, it's going to slowly trickle into nothingness. And I think They need this base thing to launch big and get it in as many people's hands as possible. So hopefully we'll see. But funny you should mention the BT deal because the next news story we've got from this week is stateside, all the way across the pond. Verizon have partnered with Google Stadia on a very, very similar deal for US broadband. We won't go too much into it because we don't want to promote a corporation like Verizon. I don't know if they're good or bad over there. I don't know if it's one of the better networks or not. So I won't assume to know. But it's mobile network Verizon obviously do home broadband too, just like BT does over here in the UK, and they are currently doing it with Fios broadband, which is their top speed package. My guess is just like the BT one, it's clearly the top speed bundle because they don't want Stadia running shit on a on an ADSL line or a copper cable. The interesting thing for me was the prices over in the States. I think it starts off with the Fios gigabit package at $79.99 per month, which is actually quite a little bit steeper than the entry level BT package in terms of just like a dollars to pound comparison.
I think the BT one's only 50 megabits per second, not a gig. It's a significant difference in speed there.
True, but you only need the low threshold to get the 4K. But in terms of an entry point, though, in terms of like just like money per month, it's a little bit steeper. But yes, you're right, Rich. You are getting a much faster line, and I'm sure Verizon's Fios Internet is very niche. The size of the United States, I'm sure it's not widely accessible. My guess is it's only cities.
If I had to assume, I'd imagine Verizon are doing a big push for the gigabit thing, and this is where they've teamed up with Stadia because, well, if you go up to the gigabit rather than, say, 500 megs, you'll get Stadia.
Yeah.
I'm sure Google would probably like it down to the 100 option if they do one.
But... Yes, certainly. But alas, it's another way of Stadia getting out there. As you mentioned, Luke, they need to get these billboards and such out in the wild. And I think another partnering with another tech company, for better or for worse, it gets their branding out there. It gets that marketing material. It gets those posters in potentially their shop windows, or it gets the staff talking about it with their customers. And it's that seed, once it's planted, it can grow over time.
It gets it in people's hands as well. Don't underestimate it.
Exactly,
if you might not be interested in gaming, but if you're going, I'm getting BT or I'm getting Verizon Internet, or what's this Google Stadia thing? I'll give it a go.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, you look at the success of, say, like the Nintendo Wii, the phenomenal number of units that sold. It was people who were just thought, I'll have a go for what it costs. I might use it for Just Dance or something.
Wii Fit was huge.
Wii Fit, yeah, exactly. Like Wii Fit. So that's the kind of thing I would expect Stadia to do, is just getting people to go exactly what you've just said, just using it. Once you use it, I think people are pretty much sold.
Yeah, and I think it's always going to be a harder sell because it doesn't come with a console. So that traditional box, parents, grandparents, even children expect when they talk about, I want to play games. It's my birthday coming up. It's Christmas coming up. Mum, Dad, could I have this? It's very easy for them to say, yeah, I'll go to the shop. I'll go to GameStop or local supermarket, and I will hand over the cash and I will walk home with a big console box that gets plugged into the television. With Stadia being all in the cloud, yes, you have your controller and your Chromecast stick. It's very nefarious to try and promote something that doesn't actually exist as a physical option. Yeah. It's always interesting we see with sales with broadband, it's a similar thing because you're not physically getting, like, you get your router, yes, but what does it actually do? It just sits in the corner of your living room flashing lights at you all the time. You need something tangible to get in people's hands, and you're totally right, Richie. Once they get them out in the wild and people start singing its praises and telling positive stories of it, there's nothing better than positive word of mouth coming from people as opposed to corporations.
We've talked about it before as well. I think in terms of the kids' audience, I think it can be brilliant for parents because they're not having to replace the box every couple of years for like extra £500. But they need to get the games there. You need to get your Minecrafts and you get your Overwatches, your Fortnites.
Yeah.
These games that kids buy into and play for a long time until the next big cultural game comes out.
Yep. It's totally true. And the reality is, if, say, you said Fortnite and you had a young teenager right now saying, Mum, Dad, I want to play Fortnite. They don't have the £400 to buy a console or 300, whatever console you go for. But once base goes live, in theory, they should be able to go on their laptop that they already own, go on google.stadia.com, create an account with a Gmail or whatever, pick a username, and using just their mouse and keyboard, know the peripherals, start playing Fortnite.
if I'm Google, what I'm doing is I'm partnering Stadia base launch with Fortnite.
Yeah, which is crazy.
You get it in shops with just the controller and the Chromecast, basically the Premier Edition kit.
Yeah.
In stores like Game or GameStop or wherever you are in the world, with the Fortnite thing on the box. So parents looking for it, see Fortnite, buy it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good chance to kind of segue into why you're on the episode today, Luke, and that is that
He's a massive Fortnite streamer.
Yeah.
He loves it. He spells Fortnite with a G and a H. How dare he? But no, the reality is, we gave you a buddy pass, Luke, to trial out for us, Google Stadia. Your experience, obviously, you didn't have the controller. Unfortunately, the buddy pass doesn't come with one of those. I'd have loved to hand one over to you to test, but you've had to go about this pretty much as someone who signs up to Stadia base potentially is going to experience. So do you want to just start off by just taking us through a rundown of what you got the code from me? What happened? What happened after that? Where did you go?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, as you say, I think my experience would be very similar to what will be coming up for others. So yeah, I got the code from you, and it was completely seamless. In all honesty, the actual process of getting Stadia, get myself on there, got the codes, downloaded the app, logged it in, logged in using my Gmail credentials, and that was it. I was away straight away. The free games came up, claimed them all, jumped on my laptop, plugged in. I've got an old wired Xbox 360 controller. Used that, it detected it, and I was away. And that was it. I was really pleasantly surprised how easy it was. I thought there'd be a lot more, log in, do this.
In terms of a time frame, then, from start to finish, how long would you say it took you to be up and playing?
Oh, maybe like 15 minutes, I think. Maybe shorter than that. It was an absolute toddle. It really was. As I said, I was surprised how seamless it was, and it wasn't. Do you want to get this as well? Maybe you want this. Like, there was no monetary incentive, which for me as a consumer is great. I was surprised that Google wasn't doing that. And yeah, straight away I was gaming. And yeah, I was trying out first of all, because I was listening to the podcast before I was lucky enough to get the buddy pass. So I thought I'd sort of try and push Stadia a little bit, and I tried my 10-year-old ancient falling apart laptop. I did a benchmark test on an online website for graphics and games and things beforehand. Out of a rating of 0 to 100, it got 2.4.
Okay. Wow.
It struggles to turn on, literally. Is it
running on Windows XP by any chance?
It might as well be. It's just about handling 10, basically.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Wow.
So I put that
the hardware's
on.
not very good, to sum it up.
The hardware's not very good, yeah. And it worked. I mean, there was some lag, I'm not going to lie, but that was very much the hardware, and I was expecting it. I think that's the key difference. I went on thinking this isn't going to work, but suddenly I'm sat there playing Destiny 2, thinking, what the hell is going on? I'm on this laptop.
Destiny 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, don't get me started on the actual game, but yeah. And then obviously Tomb Raider and Thumper as well. I must say Thumper was particularly difficult to play because of some of the lag.
Yeah, I found that too. I found that. But you did mention to me earlier on, whilst playing Thumper, are you up to number 2?
Oh yeah, I'm up to level 3 now, but I got a number 39 in the world on level 2, and I was absolutely buzzing.
There you go.
About it. So I'm pretty hot on Thumper, not gonna lie. So
if anyone wants to challenge Luke on Thumper,
number 39, I might still be there.
Hit him up on the scoreboard and challenge yourself.
You know, half an hour after this goes out, you'll be in triple figures.
Yeah, that's it. I've actually spent a long time playing Thumper, and I'm only up to level 3. I'm not going to lie. But the reason that I managed to play that, I must admit, is I went on my partner's laptop, which is a little bit newer than mine, and the experience after that was completely utterly seamless. There was no lag or anything.
How does Fibre work with mouse and keyboard? Because I jumped in briefly, and it's like this is a game where I need a gamepad.
So I used it with my Xbox 360 pads, but I did play around with the keyboard as well. I thought that might give me a bit of an edge, but it didn't.
Hey mate, yeah. 39, not to turn your nose up at.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it's. I think the difference is I've been pretty blown away by just the proof of concept and the fact that it works. But I came in very much with my eyes open, just thinking, well, this isn't going to work on my old barely loads laptop, but it did. And again, I think from a communications perspective, if you have to know a little bit before you jump in, I'd say, because if you looked at just the normal Google start page for Stadia, I found it quite it glosses over, in my opinion, what you need. So it says, laptop internet connection, I think it was 15 megabits. I get 100, so I'm fine there. And Chrome, or ideally a Chromebook. Yeah. And if I knew zero about gaming, I might get the wrong idea. But again, I think it's just, if you go in with your eyes wide open, then you're blown away, which I've been. There's the only issues that I've had is thinking long term. So in terms of the library, which obviously has its issues, I think. To be honest, they're all new games to me.
I was going to say, all 40 of them will be like so different from
2000.
I've never played any of them. I get up to maybe 2005 and I drop off. So for me, that's great. One thing that I think it's missing right now, and I'm 100% it's coming, because as you've said previously, there's 120 games planned for this year, is just that middle ground of gaming, or the more budget and middle ground, I'd say. So you've got right now from, I think it's £25, like $30 up to $100 plus, compared to, say, you've got Steam or GOG where you get something for maybe £5, a really great game. £5-10 would get you, I don't know, a really old school RPG, or
you know what? I'd actually love a partnership between Stadia and GOG. That would be amazing.
That would get me 100% onto Stadia.
And that's how they can bring Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that I've found myself doing on the Switch. For example, so I was trying to get into new gaming again. You know what? I'm actually going through Doom again for like the 1,000th time. So it was £4.
The original.
The original, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you meant the 2016.
Wait till you get hands in 2016.
I think I'd.
I think you'd have a heart attack switching from the original to that.
I don't think I'd be ready for
intense.
It. But I must say I am really, really impressed overall. But it's just missing that final cutting edge, that next step of the mass buy-in from people like me. Yeah. Whereas the people who are 100% in on it, I can see why they keep going.
I'm still quite optimistic. I've been saying since literally episode 1 of this podcast that I see the period of time we're in right now as a soft launch, and the hard launch will come with Stadia base.
Yeah. And I think for me, if they had been more communicative about that, I mean, I know that the official beta was previous. I don't know what it was called, but I read that there was a beta. So this is the soft launch.
It was Project Stream, wasn't it? And I think it was just Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Okay. So if there was something like that communicated, it would be possibly a bit better.
Like I've mentioned many times, I think they have to go big with base, and I'm sure from a marketing standpoint, there's people probably who are on a much higher wage than us three are together, who's up in that Google office, who lays out the roadmap for base. And I think there's a few things you mentioned there, Luke, as you said, coming in as a Buddy Pass subscriber. There's a few things in terms of the marketing message they need to simplify. There's a few things in terms of their brand image they need to condense down and just really push out there here's the 3 steps you need to play Stadia. Simple. Sign up, have one of these devices, you're good to go. That's all you need. And I think they need to reform that slightly, which I think they will do going into base, because they're not daft over there. They know what's required. In terms of the gameplay, I was fortunate enough to showcase Stadia recently to a bunch of my colleagues and peers, and we had it on a massive 70-inch Samsung display. And for me, what was great is it was hotspotted from my mobile device using 4G. We were getting about 130 meg, and then we linked it up to the TV using HDMI cable, and loads of them in the room just immediately said the graphics look gorgeous, it looks beautiful, it looks stunning. Showcased Tomb Raider and Borderlands 3. Then what we did is similar to what you've just mentioned there, Luke. I quickly switched over to a really shitty 10-year-old Toshiba laptop. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Toshiba make laptops, apparently. It was so old. The actual base where the keyboard sits in the laptop was about an inch thick. It weighed, like, if I hit you across the head with this laptop, you would be clean unconscious. No,
people
no
moan about it's like beveling a mobile phone.
Exactly. Yeah, this thing would take you out like a brick. And straight away, logged in, Stadia, bang, game jumped across straight away. Unplugged the Stadia controller, plugged it into the old laptop, and it just continued seamlessly from where the game left off. So that was two things straight away with 20 odd people in a room. They were wowed by the graphics, they were wowed by the seamless transition. And then finally, I jumped over to a Pixel 4a, which we also had in the room. And continued the gameplay from there on a mobile device using 4G. So there was about 3 kind of jumping points that I was able to showcase it. And they were all kind of wowed by it, I'd like to say. Obviously, there's a few people in the room who are probably just a bit, this isn't for me, which you're always going to get. But what I'd be interested to hone in on, Luke, is they were really impressed by the graphics, but that was obviously on a 65-inch brand new 4K TV. How have you found the graphic fidelity going from the games you're traditionally used to playing Stadia?
Oh, I mean, it's just night and day. I was going through Destiny 2. As I say, I played a couple hours on that, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And the two Tomb Raider games as well. I know that Matt, your previous guest from Stadia Source, said a similar thing to probably what I experienced. So his father-in-law still plays the original Tomb Raider games, which I do now and then he jumped in to the new ones, and obviously blown away. But it was incredible. I like, again, I'm probably seeing it through different eyes to other people. But yeah, that was what really got me. It's even Thumper, to be honest, and that to me is so impressive. The fact that I can just get even 10-15 minutes for me, play a great game, because I still enjoy a challenge in the game. It's not like I'm awful at games and I need that kind of like super beginner stuff, even though I don't play as much now. I'm still okay. So having something like Thumper where I can jump in, you still get the great fidelity of graphics and stuff like that. It's perfect. But I couldn't believe it. I think the main difference for me, especially in the Tomb Raider games, is changing from like the FMV videos to the gameplay. It was just jaw-dropping.
Famous. I think Destiny was a great partner for them to get as the free game for everybody, because even though I'm not Destiny's biggest fan, I completely am blown away by like the graphics on the planets and as it pans across the kind of solar system sky and everything, and you go in and out of the atmosphere. It's such a gorgeous game to look at.
For me, the failure of that game for enticing me in on Stadia was always that fact that it's not a new game. It assumes that you know what you're doing and that you've been playing for a long time. So a lot of the early days content is just being kind of removed to get people towards the end game as quick as possible. So you don't have that nice arc throughout as you're leveling up and developing your character before you're kind of into end game content. Which is a bit of a shame, but that's just the game as it is now.
Yeah, I went into Destiny 2 completely blindfolded. I never played Destiny 1. I didn't even know what the storyline was.
I wouldn't wear blindfold playing.
And I've played it for a few hours and I still don't really know what I'm doing.
I don't think any of us do either, to be fair. So we should give it some more time. But
I'll give it a full week, and I played quite a bit, and it just didn't click.
Yeah,
I think it's the kind of game where back in the day I would be absolutely adoring, but where I am at the moment,
You're right. It's a time-consuming game, which all live to play ones are. But speaking of games, Luke, and jumping around from different things, we'll pivot slightly back towards a couple of the latter news stories from this week. We found out that Farming Simulator 2020 is not coming out. It's not a thing. They're not doing a yearly installment. Basically, they're breaking the mold. That EA cycle of every year you're going to get a new FIFA 20, FIFA 21. Farming Simulator instead is deciding to focus on some DLC for 2020, which I think from an outsider who's played Farming Simulator a little bit. Remember, you can check out our Sounds of Stadia Let's Play video over on YouTube if you want to find out how good we are at agriculture.
How good we are at scaling up churches.
Yeah, it's turning more of a free running.
We approach it like an action adventure game.
Yeah, we bought a dog, everyone. Yeah. But the reality is, Farming Simulator, it's probably a smart move, in my opinion, to just bring out some DLC to change the iteration, because at the end of the day, how much can you add to a Farming Simulator game year on year? It's not like it's.
It feels like it is one of them games, rather than bring out a new game every year, just keep tweaking the graphics, that sort of stuff, then quality of life stuff, and just keep bringing out DLC.
Could add global warming. That could be DLC.
Your farm has flooded.
Yeah, you have too many cows and Greenpeace turn up.
Steal the cows. Conspiracy. Where's the dog gone? So it could be anything like that. But yeah, I think it's a smart move for them. Again, it costs money to make a new game, whereas it's much cheaper to just churn out some DLC. So that, right, nice and easy. And obviously, hopefully, it's going to come to Stadia day and date once it's been agreed upon. A few other little stories we got this week. The Android and iOS app for Stadia got an update. I think the community were expecting this to be the big go, and everyone was going to be able to play Stadia on their non-Pixel mobile phones. Unfortunately, it was a bit more of a basic update with some tweaks.
I think people were expecting way too much, considering it wasn't advertised at all. It was kind of, people noticed that Stadia was updating. Yeah,
and I don't think people should look too much into this. If you check your phone every single night, there will be about 20 apps that require an update.
Yeah.
I don't sit there looking at my Deliveroo app or my Amazon app going, there's something exciting coming for this. It's one of those things, that it's going to happen.
There's a few little things in there that I think they've probably taken community feedback on. Like your Pro Games now has a little Pro icon on the bottom left. So if you decide to cancel your subscription, you know basically what you're losing. Mm-hmm. They've updated the wording on the data usage and performance settings for balanced, where now they've stating that it is capping to 1080p and it's 12.6 gigabytes per hour. So that's just a little thing.
Handy information.
Yeah.
But to the masses, it's nothing newsworthy.
Your buddy pass icons now animated.
Way! Congratulations, Luke. Your buddy pass icon is now animated.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's it then. That's me signed up.
That's it. That's all it took to push him over the edge. A few other little bits and pieces. Google did announce an I/O event or a 10 event or 10, whatever the hell it's called, which is more.
It is I/O. Stands for I/O. I checked.
Input output. Oh, actually, sorry. The logo is the input-output logo. That makes total sense. Very clever, Google. Very clever. So that's scheduled for the 12th and 14th of May. It's essentially Google's GDC for themselves, where they speak to their own teams internally. But being Google, it has to be broadcast, so it'll be no doubt on YouTube to cover. Yeah. My guess is they will go into some Stadia content alongside all of their other many things that Google cover across the board. I'm not expecting any big news out of this, especially with it being the month prior to E3.
And it's not a Stadia event, it's a Google event, so it'll encompass pretty much everything that Google do.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong, the community, everyone out there, no doubt will be rife and hungry for information come the 12th of May. However, bear in mind, E3 is the month after, and this conference is not focused on Stadia whatsoever. I'd be surprised if it even got a brief mention around some things.
It'd be nice if they use this event to get some of the more drier topics like user performances and stuff to get the devs involved, and then E3 go big with like the more interesting stuff with the game launches, that sort of stuff.
E3 is where I'm going to put my pin and say they're going to go big at E3 this year. But in terms of this, just similar to GDC, the audience is not us gamers. It's very much the people who are on the ground doing the work, and the I/O event is 100% for Google as an umbrella blanket across all of their divisions. So don't look for too much new Stadia news when it comes to May the 12th.
I think it'd be a mistake to put big Stadia news in there, to be honest.
I completely agree. It would just go under the radar and it would be lost in the mix with all of other Google things. Final news story then of the week is YouTube Gaming has snapped up the rights to Activision and Blizzard's esports broadcasting, which it's interesting how we're starting to see similar trends from the sports world, football, soccer, NFL and stuff. These broadcasting rights go for tons and tons of money. And here we go. YouTube Gaming has stepped in and it broadcasts exclusively on there. So we're talking games like the Call of Duty Championships, Overwatch. What else is there, Richie?
Hearthstone.
So these massive online multiplayer games that are broadcast competitively. Essentially tune into YouTube Gaming and watch these play out in their own right. Anyone pay any attention?
The Blizzard side is definitely going to have lots of stuff in there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Like Heroes of Storm, things like StarCraft, Diablo. Blizzard got some big franchises.
Yeah, big communities, big franchises, and it's just another string to the bow that is YouTube Gaming as they invest in it clearly. And I think as Stadia goes live with base, they're going to pull the purse strings and tighten all this up together. And YouTube Gaming is going to be the one place that you go for a lot of these things heading into the rest of the year.
For me, not as someone who isn't an esports guy, the thing I'm taking from this is, well, it's Google and Activision working together. That's good news for Stadia.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's some fantastic journalism right there, Richie. So that could basically mean, as we roll into these 120 games for 2020, Call of Duty, Call of Duty title on Stadia this October, November, whenever it is.
That'd be a miss if Call of Duty they didn't get Call of Duty. They get the Call of Duty tournaments on YouTube, but don't get it on Stadia.
Yeah, that will be a laughing disaster right there. So there's so much of it broadcast across Google's YouTube platform, however, not via Stadia. I'd be interested to actually see how it works with the actual game, because I know PlayStation have just rekindled their deal with Activision and Call of Duty specifically, because I believe this week they announced that the Call of Duty Championships are going to use PlayStation controllers for the tournament exclusively. So those PlayStation controllers are going to be used to broadcast on YouTube, but there's no Stadia controllers involved. So
yeah, I think this is a YouTube deal, not a Stadia deal, and they're basically different companies under their Google banner.
Yeah,
but it does show that Google and Activision there's conversations happening.
Yeah, and that's the great pull and power of Google. I think that we always forget is they're so huge and they're so integrated into all these other businesses. That rely on Google to run their own companies. Like, think of the ad revenue that comes from the likes of Activision and stuff when Call of Duty time rolls around. There's a lot of cross-pollination, I think, across business models. And they've got to think when they've sat down to negotiate these type of deals, Stadia's came into the conversation somewhere down the line.
You know what? In the adverts between games, you're going to see a Google Stadia trailer. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah, they've got to be smart with it. So finally then, only other kind of little news points. Dan, our friend over at Stadia Source, has finally revealed the content creators page, which he referenced last week. It's now live. So ourselves, Sounds of Stadia Podcast, have a little section which hopefully we're going to get some control of, and we're going to update it. And basically, if you went over there now, you would see all of our latest videos and links to the websites and such all tied in there nicely. So well done, Dan, on getting that up and running live. And watch this space as we tweak and edit it ourselves. That pretty much brings us to a wrap on the stories we've got for you this week. Luke and Richie, you've got nothing else to add?
I just want to give Duncan from Stadia Source a shout out. The Stadia event that we talked about, the GDC one, he does a great write up in all the different talks are covering. So head over to Stadia Source and give that a read.
Excellent. Luke, have you got anything else you'd like to drop in regarding your buddy pass?
Just thank you for it. Thank you for giving me it. And, yeah, enjoyed today, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to stay on once the free period expires. So yeah, I look forward to see what comes.
Well, now you say that, actually, the buddy pass for yourself, you'll have only activated it in the last couple of weeks. So actually, you probably run well into the timeline for when base should be live, hopefully. So
yeah, I think so.
you could, in theory, make that perfect transition across from being a Buddy Pass user with a couple of games, and then you've got that option to opt in for the £10 a month if you feel like you're getting your value out of it, or just stick with base.
Yeah, basically. Well, for you, Luke, basically, if you cancel the subscription now, if there's any games that you have bought, you still have them. That's fine. Mm-hmm. You basically have Stadia base.
So when Doom 2016 or Eternal does come out, we all play it. We discuss it on the podcast. Luke, you get an inkling for jumping in and playing on it. You've still got the tools at your disposal. You've still got that shitty 10-year-old laptop you can jump onto and have a go. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Which is why Stadia is perfect for me. And as I said at the beginning of the show, there must be people listening who are in a similar position to me, or know people who do. So yeah, it's so exciting, and yeah, see what happens.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think thank you from me and Richie and Tom filling in his absence. You've been a fantastic guest to have on the show, just like Dan last week. No doubt we'll have you back in the future to see. We want to learn about your journey and see where it goes, and see if you get really back into gaming with your Nintendo Switch and otherwise. Just imagine if Stadia partnered with Nintendo Switch, so you could play your Stadia games through a browser on your Switch, Luke.
When you get number one,
imagine that
number one in Thumper, we'll have you back on.
yeah, let's see. Might be a while.
But the potential is crazy, and it's huge, and it is the future, and we've got to remember that it's still very early doors, but the future's limitless, essentially, especially with the internet. So that pretty much brings us to a wrap on this week's show. We've covered all the news, topics, and stories, and we've had our special guests on. Just remember, follow us on YouTube. We've seen our subscribership shoot through the roof since Dan's appearance last week, so we're expecting big numbers off the back of your appearance, Luke. Oh, yeah. If we don't hit them millions by the end of next week, you're definitely not welcome back on. But joking aside, yes, we've seen huge listenership go through the roof. So if you are one of the new listeners, you can follow us on Twitter. So head over there, Twitter at Sounds of Stadia, or follow us on YouTube. Just search for Sounds of Stadia, and you'll find our Let's Play videos, our podcast in a static image format if you want to listen to them on a different preferred platform. Thank you for tuning into this week. We really do appreciate it. We do have a live stream with Tom. He is back from his GDC conference seat. He's put his reserve sticker on his chair now. He will be back midweek to do a live stream. As I mentioned, no doubt Borderlands 3 will be the game of his choice. And we do have some Tomb Raider videos that are going to be dropping at the beginning of February, most likely. So we'll keep you up to date on that going forward. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for listening, everybody. Richie, Luke, thank you very much once again. I've been Chris.
I've been Richie.
I've been Luke.
We are Sounds of Stadia plus guest, and we're out. Goodbye.
Bye.